Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Luncheon with the Experts. This is a Carcinoid Cancer Foundation program brought to you by Tepper Therapeutics. My name is Rain Bennett. I am your host, and I'm a filmmaker. I've been working with CCF, with the foundation, for almost 10 years to create video projects and now live video series that help spread awareness and education about neuroendocrine tumors. So if you are a regular to the show, then you know the drill. Go ahead and let us know where you're signing on from in the world. And if you're a newbie, a rookie, welcome, and let us know where you are in the world. We really love to see how far these programs reach. And every week we have somebody from a new country, and we get to see literally how far this program reaches, which is legitimately all over the world. So that is super exciting. Before we get started, we wanted to thank Tepper Therapeutics for their support of Luncheon with the Experts. And we have a quick disclaimer from them that says the opinions expressed by the guest presenters, as well as the questions asked by the audience, have not been created or suggested by the sponsors of the Facebook Live program. And CCF does not endorse or promote any of the views, opinions, or information provided in the presentation, and audience members should not rely solely on the opinions or information expressed by the guest presenter today, and should seek guidance and direction from their own medical advisors regarding any choices they make about their health or treatments. And so, as I say every week, that last sentence is the main takeaway. I know it gets a little wordy and legalese at times, but effectively what it's saying is we're going to give you some good guidance, hopefully today, and some information to help you along your journey. But by no means do we know your specific case, and you should absolutely talk to those who do know your specific case before you make any decisions going forward. So today I'm very excited for our guest. Our guest is Mia Tepper. Mia, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. So tell everybody that's watching, which I see the numbers are shooting up fast. That's exciting. Tell everybody, what exactly you do. I know you've been working in this community for a long time. Where do you work and what do you do?
Sure. So I work at InterScience Institute, and we are an esoteric biomarker laboratory. And we're in Inglewood, which is basically Los Angeles. And I am the COO of InterScience Institute.
So for a simple man like me, what are some of the things that you all do at InterScience?
So the majority of our testing is focused on the neuroendocrine tumor testing. Mm-hmm. So you'll be hearing today a lot about lab tests such as the 5-HIA in plasma, sure, Pancreastatin, Neurokinin A. Those are some of our highly specialized tests. We also do other areas of testing. We do testing in diabetes. We do testing in hypertension, and also in mast cell diagnosis.
Well, I think then that we're probably going to have a lot of questions today, because these questions about testing is something that comes up every week for us. I mean, obviously, the importance of being able to determine that this is the disease someone is dealing with up front, and that's part of the challenges that we have with this disease is struggling to be properly diagnosed at the right time. So everybody at home, please go ahead and send in your questions. We're going to get to as many as we can today, but just a reminder that as we kind of alluded to with the disclaimer, we don't know your specific case and we can't really dive into it here. So when you ask your questions, we still want to give you as much guidance as we can. Make sure you ask them in a generic way so that we can give you an answer that does give you some information, but we just don't have the time to go deeply into everybody's individual case, because there's a lot of information that we would need to be able to address that specifically. And giving me more information about your case doesn't necessarily make it easier to get those questions across. So send your questions. If you're still around, we may ask you for a little bit of clarification or maybe to rephrase it. So stick around for the whole show. If by chance we don't get to your question, because sometimes we get a whole lot of these and are unable to get to everybody's, I highly encourage you to reach back out to the Carcinoid Cancer Foundation, either here on their Facebook page where you are. You can send them a private message, or on their website, carcinoid.org, www.carcinoid.org. Another thing that I always like to mention, that if you see a question come across in the comment section, which I love the interaction that we have in our within our attendees in our little community here in that comment section. So if you see someone ask a question that you also have or you'd like the answer to, you can simply like that or love that, and I can see if there's a demand for that question. It kind of upvotes it so that I realize, hey, that's a question that many people have, and I can make sure that we get it across. And otherwise, I think that's it, everybody. Before we get started, I wanted to say, have you downloaded CCF's free Net Cancer Health Storylines app? This app makes it easy for you to record your symptoms, medications, nutritional concerns, moods, and more. So if you haven't checked that out, do it now. All right. Well, we're going to start the show, Mia. First, I want to learn a little bit more about how you ended up in this role. It was, I know you've been with InterScience for a while, but take us through the beginning of the journey. How did you land where you are?
Sure. Well, it was completely accidental, as most good things are. And I was on the path to work in pharmaceutical sales. That's kind of the trajectory where I was headed. And through no fault of my own, I ended up working at InterScience because of a health issue of the CEO. So I went in initially just to help for a very short term, and then soon realized that the quality of life that I had working there was amazing. I had been working in a sales job prior to that. I think I was working 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, and I was definitely not having a quality of life. And I realized when I went to work at InterScience that I could go home at a normal time of the day, and I didn't get anything on my phone, or all these after work issues did not exist. So I stayed on. And then I started at the client services department, which is the entry level for a laboratory, and went about helping with setting up the infrastructure for the laboratory. And essentially the regulatory issues within the laboratory started to go upward at that point. So there was a lot of work to do in terms of paperwork, of creating the proof, as it were, for all of the things that we do. We do great science, but in the laboratory industry is now, with COVID testing, everybody's probably learning a little bit more about laboratory testing. So you learn about things like the reproducibility of a test and the repeatability and the sensitivity. So you have to show this documentation for your licensure. You get inspected every 2 years by federal agencies and state agencies. And that is to show them that you are doing good work. And there's another part called proficiency testing that also shows how your lab tests are effective. So I ended up staying there and moving up slowly through the departments. I've helped edit 14 research published papers and 3 books that we've put out on neuroendocrine tumors. And then in 2009, I realized it was time to go to business school. So I went to UCLA Anderson, and 2011, when I graduated, I got a great promotion. And that promotion was the title of Chief Operating Officer. And that's essentially the job I had already been doing. But going to business school gave me not only the confidence, but the assertiveness to say, this is my title. This is what I'm doing.
Nice. Good for you. So now that you're in that role officially, what's your day-to-day look like? Do you deal with patients, personally, or are you just doing high-level stuff? Like, where are you at now?
I do both. So we're a very small laboratory, and the mantra of our CEO has been stay small, but perform with distinction. So I do a lot of things. I feel like I'm in that I Love Lucy show where she, they switch the hats and they ring the bell and you're a different hat. So I do a lot. My favorite part of the job is working with the patients. And for a lot of years, I would go out on the road and I would speak to the support groups and share how our biomarkers could help them in their lives, in their disease, and knowing where they are with their disease. So we'll definitely talk more about that later.
Absolutely.
And so I go out and I do marketing not only in the patients, but we have medical conferences, as you know, and some are at the doctor level, which would be NANETS, and then some are at the patient levels, like NCAN usually puts on a great annual conference, as do a lot of the other support groups. And then another area that I do is the lobbying. So I go to DC, we're a part of the American Clinical Laboratory Association,
Awesome.
And that's where we meet with the laboratories. And again, this is something we will get into, but the way that your laboratory tests as patients come to us is that they are usually filtered through your insurance. And so whichever laboratory you're affiliated with, whether that's Mayo Medical Labs, ARUP, Quest Diagnostics or Laboratory Corporation of America, those are the main labs that send to us. But we also get labs and your tests from various individual hospitals, from academic universities. We do work with the NIH, we do pharmaceutical clinical trials. So there's a lot of different levels of work that I do in terms of connecting and basically being the liaison between the laboratory and whomever, whether it's a regulatory person, whether it's a patient. I love it all. But the patients, that's my favorite.
That's awesome. Yeah, I totally understand. Well, there's a lot of questions that I have personally. Maybe I'll have the time to get some across, but I already see some coming in from the crowd. The numbers are continuing to rise. So let's make sure that we get to these people while they're here. So our first question comes from Karen, who's definitely a friend of the foundation. She's usually here every week. What's up, Karen? Good to see you again. And Karen says, what is your opinion on molecular profiling, genomic and transcriptomic profiling? Did I pronounce that right?
You got me. So that's a different kind of test. We do radioimmunoassays.
Okay.
And these are highly sensitive and specific assays. For example, you can get down to the picogram per ml level. So that's 1,000-fold more sensitive than some of the other tests. And that's the specialized testing that we do. So I can't comment on that. I'm sorry, Karen. I don't have the expertise. By the way, my disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm a business person.
Right.
So.
Right. Understood. Okay. So let's break down before we get moving forward then. I know you've touched on it a little bit already, but what are some of the basic tests that a patient would, take and why? Like why this test versus that test? Is that too big of a question to start off with, or can we kind of lay some ground? Okay, cool.
I think we can go there. Sure. So typically in this industry for a long time, the two tests that were the original tests for diagnosis were chromogranin A and 5-HIAA in urine. But as any of you might know who have collected a 24-hour urine, that's quite an arduous task. You have to keep it refrigerated the entire time. I had one grandfather tell me that when his grandkids came over, they said, "Oh, Grandpa, we have lemonade in the refrigerator," and he was just mortified. And so he was one of those patients that thanked us profusely when our blood test came out, and all you had to do was go take a special tube called the Z tube and get a blood test. So the 5-HIAA plasma is a test that's highly sensitive and specific, and they have equated it to the urine. We have a research paper that's available on our website for free download, and I believe it's going to be available on the CCF website too. And you can read all about it if you want to get into the nitty-gritty science about how the test compares to the urine test. Another test that they commonly use is chromogranin A.
Sure.
So over the years, something that happens in the lab industry is that when a test gets popular, more kit manufacturers will want to develop this test. And that's the case with chromogranin A. But in America versus in Europe, we don't have standardized testing. So in Europe, where they might have one antibody and one test, so when you go to chromogranin A, across the board, everybody knows the units are the same and the test is the same. Unfortunately, in America, we have so many different tests. I think there's somewhere between 7 to 9 different tests because each of the laboratories has their own developed test, and then these kit manufacturers as well. So the reference ranges are different sometimes in all of these tests. So if you get a result from one lab that says up to 5, and then you get a result of 163, you might think, oh my goodness, my levels are going up. It went from 5 to 163. But you have to look at the units of the test. Is it nanogram per DL? Is it picogram per ml? That's 1,000-fold difference right there. And you have to look at the manufacturer. So with the patients, thankfully, CLIA, which is our federal reporting agency, does require the laboratories to put on the bottom of your report who performed that test. So if you do get a spurious result that doesn't match anything you've had prior, definitely try and get a copy of your lab report, look at the very bottom and see which laboratory performed that test and see if that's different from perhaps the other lab. And so because of this variability in America in the chromogranin A, the NANETS meeting for the past couple of years has been saying, well, it might not be the marker that we thought it was, but I need to specify that that's really for America. In Europe, it's a different story. So that's where some of our testing comes in. The pancreastatin is a great marker for midgut patients, and it can show changes in tumor burden 3 to 6 months sooner than a scan. And depending where you live, scans can run as high as, over $20,000 in some cities, I've heard patients tell me. And our blood test is around 200. So do the math. And is it easier to just get your blood drawn, or is it, do you want to go there and get a scan? So pancreastatin is another one that's a great marker for midgut patients. As I mentioned, the 5-HIA plasma, that's another one. Another problem with false positives with the 5-HIA urine is if after the patient collects that 24 urine that has hopefully been refrigerated the entire time, as they are transporting it back to the laboratory that gave them the jug, if they don't keep that refrigerated, you've also just initiated a pre-analytical condition that might give you a false positive. I had one gentleman tell me that the urine spilled in his truck as he was driving to the laboratory, and that smell never came out. He said he had to get a new truck. So again, another patient who really thanked us for doing the blood test. And as those of you who might have carcinoid syndrome know, if you've got 10 to 12 bouts of diarrhea a day, there's no way you're going to get a clean urine catch. And so another interfering substance with testing. So the blood 5-HIA plasma has been shown to be sensitive, reproducible, and specific. It matches the urine test, and it's just far easier.
Got it. So I know for everybody joining us, so we're about 15 minutes in. If you've joined us late, we are here with Mia Tepper. And this is a unique episode. We've got a lot of great content, as you can tell. She's a wealth of information about testing, and I know that's important to a lot of you. So if you know anybody that would benefit from this, tag them in the comments, share this video with them, let them know this is going on live so that hopefully they can get their questions in too while we have Mia, who has been so gracious with her time today. But if they don't make it, or if you'd like to revisit this video, please know that it will be evergreen. It'll live here on the Carcinoid Cancer Foundation Facebook page. Just go to the videos tab. You can access it at any time. And then starting next week, early next week on Monday, we will republish it to YouTube. So for anyone you know that doesn't have Facebook, they can see the video there too. So Mia, we have another question that came in from Lynn. And Lynn says, I'm having trouble getting any local LabCorp labs to order Z-tubes so I can get my net labs done. My usual LabCorp closed since COVID, which might be a common thing. Any suggestions for what I can do now?
Yes. Lynn, I would say give us a call, because we have the contacts of the direct LabCorp. So LabCorp sends from approximately 12 different locations around the country to us. And they have a hub in Burlington, which is where the corporate office is. And that's where they like to order the majority of their Z-tubes from. And basically what we have to do is we have to educate the patient service centers, or the PSCs. And we have to explain to them that they need to get the Z-tube from corporate office in Burlington, and therefore they can have it on site. And these tubes are good for 1 year refrigerated. So these patient service centers, if you're going to be going there for your serial collections, maybe, I don't know how many times you're having it done per year, depending on the stability of your disease, but they can order a few, and you can give them a heads up with the script from your doctor, and you can ask them to keep 4 on hand, say if you're going to go quarterly. And if you're having any trouble, Lynn, just email me, and if you can get me the phone number of the location of the patient service center where you are, we can call them and we can explain this process to them. You guys have enough to deal with on your plate. You don't need to deal with the minutia of the Z-tubes. We can help. You can either call us at our laboratory, which is 1-800-ALL-CURE, or 800-255-2873, or you can email me, mtepper@interscienceinstitute.com. Happy to help. Like I said, working with the patients is my favorite part of my day. You guys have so much on your plate. We can do what we can to help you. And we know that the lab testing is just one kit in your toolbox, right? Dr. Lou talks about the toolbox. We are just one spoke in the wheel. We are a small part, but we are a part that we have been told by patients gives you quality of life to know where you are with this disease, right? Most patients live 15 to 20 years or more with this disease. And maybe after you've had something resected, you might want to know, well, where am I? I'm in year 7. Am I good? Am I growing? Am I stable? I feel good, but where am I? So having a blood test is really helpful. Having a pancreastatin, especially if you're a mid-gut patient, it's going to help you know if changes are going on before they'll see it on a scan. And from what I've been told, the patients, you know what's going on in your body before any doctor or any lab tests, and we trust that. But this is just a way to give you a quantitative result and go to your doctor or go to your specialist or your insurance and say, here, I need something more. But let's start with something simple, like a blood test.
Awesome. And thank you for giving your information. Everybody watching, we usually provide those resources in the comments. So stay tuned for that. If they're not already there, I'm a little higher up. And so we'll give those, the email and the contact information that Mia just gave you, and anything that she references today, a link, a resource, an article, a book, anything like that, we'll make sure to tag those in the comments so that you can easily access those, and you don't have to go away from the video and Google search it real quick. We'll provide that for you. Now, Mia, this is a couple times now you've mentioned quality of life. You talked about your own quality of life with previous jobs. Now you've just mentioned it again. And that was an area that I wanted to touch on with you. But I know that when we talked earlier this week, we realized that we both share a passion for fitness. So this is a question that often comes up with the patients in our community. So I want to talk a little bit about how people can seek out their best quality of life from that perspective, knowing that people are dealing with a disease here. So they may not be able to do, a boxing workout like we talked about, but I still feel strongly, and perhaps you agree, that some sort of, exercise or physical movement is helpful, including things like nutrition and all of that as well. But can you talk a little bit about the pursuit of the highest quality of life from a physical perspective?
And you're talking about for the patients?
Yeah, for the patients. Like, is that important? Is that something they should be trying to do, understanding that, running a marathon might not be in the cards for them, but how important is it, in your opinion, for a patient to try to remain active in whatever capacity that they can?
I think it's really individual. As you know,
Okay.
with this disease, it's called a zebra because no two zebras are alike. So I think it's very patient independent. I remember meeting some patients that said they were still exercising and working out and that it wasn't a problem for them, whereas other patients, even doing something like yoga, was just too strenuous for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, in general, for a healthy person, yes, exercising is really important. It can help you, but it depends upon the patient and the case, from what I've heard, the feedback that I've gotten from the patients. But quality of life is something that, it's so independent. It can be, I want to have a house on the beach, or I just want to be able to walk out of my house every day, right? So everyone's definition is so unique. And I think whatever helps that person feel that they're having a great quality of life, whether it is how they live their day to day, whether it's, are they able to eat? Are they able to leave the house? Is their diarrhea under control? All these factors I think we take for granted. Maybe COVID has given some of us more of an understanding about what it's like to feel shut in and have some empathy for these patients that have this carcinoid syndrome and chronic diarrhea and can't leave the house. So I think quality of life is such an individual thing. Whatever helps you, whether it's prayer, meditation, exercise, stretching, reading a good book, watching a funny movie, getting your mind off of it. Go back to the Lucille Ball. I go back to her because she's just a great comedian, and you need comic relief in your life, right? You need joy. So whatever brings you peace and joy and fulfillment, that's quality of life. So I can't define that for you. You've got to find it for your own. I hope people find it. That's the goal. And I know a lot of physicians say that's their goal with their patients, to give them a longer life, but not just longer, but to give them a better quality of life. And I think that's fulfilling their missions as doctors.
Outstanding. What an incredible answer. And it's so true. And everything about this disease is individualized, from the treatment to how we approach it. But I think that's a really good point, because it's not a one size fits all thing. And really what we're trying to do is provide that quality of life. That to me, that's putting someone in a good, mental space to where they have joy and peace. Like you said, those carefully chosen words. And for somebody, it may be getting outside, and for me, playing soccer or something like that makes me feel like I've exerted some energy, and so that I feel better mentally later that day. But I think rest does the same thing. Meditation does the same thing for people. Floating in a swimming pool does the same thing for people. And running a marathon does the same thing for some people. So I think that's a great point. It's about the end goal that we're trying to achieve, and it's not necessarily the same for everybody. So beautiful answer. Pivoting back to the questions from the people in the audience, we have a question from AG. Again, about the Z-tubes. Says, Mia, my local oncologist is able to order the Z-tubes from ISI, but his local lab uses LabCorp, who appears to be unable to get the Z-tubes back to ISI correctly so that I can get surveillance using the pancreastatin test. Help. What can I do to help?
You can contact us. We are very hands-on. We answer our telephones. If you call us at the lab, you're going to get a real person. You're not going to get a recording and push 10 buttons and then get disconnected. You get a real person. So we're small, but we're mighty. And we believe in being personable. And the thing is, we're going to help you. We're going to guide you through this. We guide many patients. Sometimes patients will give us a call and say, I just want you to know, I had my lab test done. I want you to watch out for them. If this is the case, if you live in a city where it's not so easy to get your lab test done, or you're constantly having your laboratory forward it to the wrong laboratory, the thing you can do is fill out a form with us, which is called the PHI, Protected Health Information. We can keep that on file for you. As long as we have that, according to California law, we are allowed to give you a copy of your results. We are allowed to tell you that your blood came in, if it was frozen, if it thawed during shipping, what have you. Those are usually protected from HIPAA, but this form, it actually allows us to help you. So if you live in one of those cities where you've had continuous problems, again, please email me, contact our staff and client services. We're here to help you. We sometimes have to hold the hands of these labs, and it's okay. You know what? They're big labs. We do just a tiny fraction of work for them compared to what these big labs are doing. And so there's so many lab tests. And if we can just educate that particular patient service center or that laboratory, we have relationships with all these labs. We've been working with all of them for over 40 years. So we have contacts at every single laboratory, maybe not every single patient service center, but that's where we need your help. Give us a phone number and a name of someone that you spoke to. And a lot of times you may have to walk into that patient service center. Sometimes they're hard to reach on the phone. They may be the size of a little closet. They may have one tech in there doing all the work. And, you know, laboratory testing is quite extensive. So if you can give them a little bit of patience as well, and the way you treat them is how they're going to treat you. We've noticed this. So just reach out to us if you have any trouble.
That's a good point. And I love the personal touch that you all have. And I see that a lot in this community, whether it's doctors or anybody. Everybody is very passionate about the pursuit of, trying to help the patients that are dealing with this disease. So I know that the patients really appreciate that too. Was that a zebra mug that you have there?
Yes. One of the patients gave it to me at conferences years ago.
I got my Luncheon with the Experts mug.
I love it.
Our friend Lisa Yen had commented on that earlier. I saw her comment. She said she loves your scarf and the mug. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but I got a little zebra family up there as well to represent. And I want to take a moment. There's a couple of we have several attendees that are from other countries like we normally do, but I just want to shout out Tamar from South Africa and Judy.
Wonderful.
Judy just tuned in from Australia. It's 4 a.m. tomorrow here at LOL.
Wow.
So Judy, you are a soldier. Good to have you. Welcome. Judith has a question that says, how often should you have the plasma or the urine test done, in your opinion?
Okay, so disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. You need to ask your doctor. This depends upon where you are in your journey, where you are in your disease. I do want to just say one thing about it. The importance of serial collections cannot be emphasized enough. After I answer your question, if I can parlay to a research paper, I want to give you guys some information. So pardon me while I just open my computer. So Judith, the question of how often you should have these done really depends upon your individual case. You need to check with your doctor and see how they're monitoring you. And what you want to know is you want to know the trend. So again, making sure that it came to the same laboratory, you need to make sure if something changed. Okay, so another example, in our laboratory, we have the same antibody for these tests. We've had them for almost 50 years. We're going to have them for the next 50 years. So when you have a change in your laboratory test result, it is likely because that change is of something going on with you, or did something happen in the pre-analytical collection phase? For example, patients used to tell me, and I guess they think of a nice face, but they would tell me that as they were walking out the door to go to their doctor appointment, and if you see your specialist, you might only see him once a year. You might have to travel to see him. They accidentally grabbed a banana and ate it on their way out the door. but they might not admit this to their doctor, and they're going to get that blood test drawn or the urine test collected. And meanwhile, you've effectively, you've ruined the test, because you do have to fast in the 5-HIA plasma test, just an overnight fast from all of those things like the bananas and the strawberries and kiwi and beer and hot dogs and chocolate and all those things. But in the urine test, you have to fast for those from 3 days. So I've had patients tell me that they knew the test was going to be elevated because they accidentally ate a banana as they were running out the door. But they didn't tell their doctor because they wanted to keep that appointment, because it only happened maybe once a year. And I get that. So in terms of how often you get that done, if, let's say, for example, you know that it's coming to InterScience or ISI, as some people refer to us, and you see the level going up within a year, if you see these numbers going up, that is something where you can be concerned and speak to your doctor about it. There are people who measure them monthly. I think that's the exception, not the rule. I think most people do them quarterly, but it's absolutely dependent upon your case and your doctor. So I do want to reference a paper that, again, we will have available for you. And this is a paper that was published in the Annals of Surgery. It was done by Dr. Jim Howe and team. And one thing that they have here is, Rain, let me ask you a question. Is Grace on the line with us?
Yes, Grace is on the back end. And so if you need her to...
I'm wondering if she can bring up slide 4 from the endocrinology PowerPoint that I sent her yesterday. And if not, then I'll talk about it a little bit.
You can talk about it. She can add it in a link that they can click on and see. Alternatively, okay. I can allow you to share your screen if you'd like to do that momentarily.
You know what? I think since I'm working off 2 different computers, I think it's not on this screen.
So let's just talk about it. And Grace is always great about that. So Grace, if you're there and available, she can add that in the comments. And for those of you listening at home, you can click on that link so that you can reference what Mia's talking about right now.
Right. So this is, Grace, it's slide 4 of the Endocrinology of Neuroendocrine Tumors, the PowerPoint presentation by Dr. Odoricio. He shared his presentation with me, which he gave last week on the Healing Nets Foundation, another patient-focused group and doctor-focused group. And what they talked about is the value of, they were looking at pancreastatin and neurokinin A specifically. Mm-hmm. And what they did is they had a mean of 3 values. And for this particular case study, they took the mean of 3 values, and this is just, for example, the normal level of pancreastatin from our laboratory is up to 135 picograms per ml. So this particular patient, prior to surgery, had a pancreastatin with the mean value of the 3 ranging from January of 2015 to April of 2018. So they took 3 values, and that mean value was 15,251 picograms per ml. So obviously highly elevated. This is a mid-gut patient. This is what you might expect to see. After the post-liver transplant, again, those serial values, checking them over the course of a couple of years, his pancreastatin went from 1,251 picograms per ml to 61 picograms per ml, well within the normal range of up to 135. So you can see this is really a direct marker for this particular mid-gut patient for his case. And the neurokinin A, we haven't spoken yet about that, but that's also another marker that's highly important. It's not something that raises very frequently, but I'm going to share the case of this one. So again, this patient who had the carcinoid tumor syndrome with mets to the liver, his neurokinin A prior to the liver transplant was 953 picograms per ml. And then post-liver transplant was 28. And what we know about the neurokinin A, and there's a paper here that will be available for you as well, is that if your value is consistently over 50 for 3 years, you're not going to see year 4. So neurokinin A is also an important test to monitor serially. And even though it doesn't rise that often, if you see a rise over 50, for consistently, you really need to get your doctor to be more aggressive and try and figure out if there's a way you can debulk those tumors and get that number down and reduce the disease.
Got it. we've got a question from Lee that I think pertains to that a little bit. It says, why would pancreastatin jump up 1 month and then go down drastically the next month? You have any
It
thoughts on that?
shouldn't.
Yeah.
It shouldn't. So again, you need to look at the bottom of your laboratory report and see if the same laboratory performed that test. Was the Z-tube used? Was it frozen? Did it thaw in shipping? There's so many pre-analytical conditions that can affect results. If perchance it's our laboratory, if you had a result, say we were there in January and you had a normal result of 50, and then you had it done again in July and your result was 386, you need to have your doctor contact us and give us that information, and we will rerun the test at no charge, because that's what we believe in.
Awesome.
With every laboratory test, there is a small margin of error. Nothing is perfect in this world, not a lab test either. Even though it's good science, there can be mistakes. So if perchance you get a result that's completely different from a previous one, just do two things. One, check the bottom of the lab report, make sure it was the same lab that ran it. And then two, contact us if it was us. And if we still have the sample, we can rerun that sample with the permission of your doctor. And that's how we can check that. But it shouldn't spike, so dramatically. Again, I'm not a doctor, and so we don't see the clinical information of the patients. So in your question, did this go from a case where you had not a lot of tumor activity to a very high amount of tumor burden? That would be something your doctor would know, because they're going to get more information. We are blind in our testing, which is good. We don't get any clinical information on the patient.
Got it.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. And I think it's great that you all are willing to do that. I got a question from Judy. It says, is coffee an issue? Mine went up over 2,000, but oncology says still in range. I fasted for 2 weeks. I've been symptomatic, fainting, internal tremors because of scans, blood and urine show nothing of note. My symptoms are dismissed, but I did drink coffee within 72 hours. Does that make sense to you?
Which blood test?
Mine went up over 2,000. It was while we were talking, so she was referring to that, and I'm not sure which one she's talking about. Judy, if you're still around, let us know which test you're talking about specifically, please. So I had a question for you, Mia.
Right, it looks like I'm getting. Can you still see me okay? Because I'm getting a note that my internet's unstable.
Yeah, I'm able to see you, and I can certainly hear you.
Okay, great. I can still hear you. Okay, great. So let's continue. Cool. Sorry about that.
No worries. These are the times we live in. Speaking of that, I had a question for you. What if what are you laughing at? Do you know where I'm going with this?
My internet's not responding.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, cool. So I was wondering if there were any, I'm sure there are some challenges, but what challenges, if any, has COVID presented for ISI? Are there things that you're having to do differently, or new hurdles that you're having to jump over?
To be honest, not really. It is very safe. You have to treat every sample as if it is an infectious disease. Mm-hmm. And so you always have personal protective equipment, PPE. I think that's become part of everyone's lexicon now. You always wear gloves. You always wear a lab coat. You always wear a face shield. So our PPE hasn't changed. Obviously the people are a little bit more diligent about making sure they don't have symptoms when they come into the laboratory. So they're monitoring that. But otherwise, have been unable to get their blood tests done because of the shelter-in-place initiatives in the different states. But on the whole, for us, we haven't had any problems, knock on wood. So everything is pretty status quo for us.
Good. So I heard back from Judy, and Judy says the plasma serotonin test is what she was referring to.
Ah, okay.
It shot up over 2,000, but she wasn't showing anything of note. So she was wondering if coffee could have affected that.
Okay. So Judy, we don't run the serotonin test per se. And so again, this is going to be laboratory dependent. Each blood test has its own pre-analytical patient conditions that you need to collect for. Was it the same laboratory? Again, serotonin is another one of those tests that many laboratories run with different requirements. And so you need to check which laboratory ran those two tests, see if there's a difference. And then generally, we would say recollect your sample if you had one spuriously high result and everything else has been the same since. So I would recommend you look at the lab that did it, see if there was a difference, and then contact your doctor and maybe just get it redrawn. But since we don't run that test, I can't tell you the pre-analytical conditions that are required for proper collection of that assay.
Got it. Thank you. Hopefully that helps. If you have any follow-up questions, Judy, please let us know. We're here. And in fact, everybody that's in attendance, we are here for about 20 more minutes. So if you do have questions, go ahead and get them into Mia. And if you're getting some value from this, just show us some love visually with a little thumbs up or a heart emoji or however you want to do that. It lets us know that we're doing our job. Mia, is there anything in terms of testing or anything that you all are doing at ISI that you're excited about in the near future? What's next for you guys?
So something that was exciting for us a couple of years ago, which in the lab world is recent, is that we got licensed by the New York State Department of Health. And the way that they do that licensure now is by test. They used to just en masse approve your laboratory as a New York approved lab. And if you're at all in the medical field or laboratory field, you know that getting a license from the New York State Department of Health is probably harder than getting an FDA approved test. So it's a high standard, and we have it specifically for these three tests: the pancreastatin, the neurokinin A, and the 5-HIA in plasma. So it kind of shows you the quality of work that we're doing to be approved by New York for these specific blood tests. And they also wanted to see clinical relevance. So we, shared data with them, just numbers, no names, in terms of how this helps the patients in their disease. And we also shared research publications that we're sharing here with you today. So take a look at those. They're not that hard to read, but if you have questions, you can always bring it to your doctor and try to help them, because, this is still a disease that I hear patients, even today, even with all the information out there, with all the support groups, and we even have a center of excellence at the University of Iowa here. So, and even in our country, we have so many resources, but I still hear the stories of patients that have waited 5 to 7 years to get properly diagnosed. Either their doctor told them they have menopause and that's why they're flushing, or they have IBS or IBD and that's why they have chronic diarrhea and abdominal pain. So I would just say, if the question is always there, if you don't suspect it, you can't detect it, right? That's the phrase they use. And it's really very accurate, because if you run into an ER room with this abdominal pain and they don't even know what it is, if they don't even have it on their radar, they're not going to be able to tell that this is, perhaps what's going on. So we really feel for the patients that have to wait so long to be diagnosed and, to get the proper treatment. But as we're always told, get a second opinion. If the person you're seeing, it doesn't resonate with you, maybe they're too aggressive, maybe they're not aggressive enough, find out who's going to help you live, right? Who's going to help you get through this? So I really I like to advocate for patients. And I think, like I said, you're all dealing with this. You all have dealt with the symptoms for so long. I probably, if we were able to, have a hand raise of how many of you took more than 5 years to get diagnosed, I would imagine it would be the majority of you, because I hear this all the time. And we've been working, directly one-on-one with the patients since 2005. So it's a lot of data to put together.
For sure. You still there, Mia? Okay, I think her video, everybody, was stuck for a while. I was going to get her to just stop that and start it back up. So maybe she'll sign on and it'll be working again. We still got about 15 minutes. I'm going to hang out and see if Mia can sign back in. But you all have me for the time being. So let's talk. How's everybody feeling out there? We have a moment where Mia is signed off and coming back. You know how I feel about the community. I really think there's so much benefit to be had by us sharing our stories. So I wanted to ask you all, how's everybody feeling? I mean, this is a crazy year. Things aren't necessarily getting better in terms of what we're facing as a country with the pandemic. I was writing something today that is addressing how we can use storytelling to navigate mental health crisis that's coming from this. And so that's something I'm really passionate about. How's everybody doing out there mentally to be dealing with a diagnosis like this, and then on top of that, being isolated, lonely, maybe your income has been affected. I just want to put some feelers out there and see if, we can establish some support for each other, because I know that's something that's really valuable when we feel like we're in the darkness there. I'm getting a text from Mia right now, so I'm gonna get her signed back on. But yeah, let me know in the comments. How's everybody feeling? What's going on in your lives? Anything that you've done in the past few months that has helped you overcome any struggles that you're dealing with? Is there anything I can do to help? I see your questions come in, Linda. I appreciate. Oh, look, Mia's back. Well, I thought that we would have a little bit more time together, everybody. We'll do it again soon. I'm going to let her sign back on, but continue to share that. That's my biggest ask of you all at home, is like, this is the thing that I think is really impactful about this community. And I see it in the comment section every week when we do these luncheons. And thank you. I think it was Linda who said, love these luncheons. We appreciate it. We do too. But I love seeing that community and seeing us sharing our experiences with each other, because it is unique to each person. Each disease is different, but often if you've seen someone go down a similar road, there might be an experience that can help you through your own journey. Okay, so give us just a second. She is in the chat, joining, connecting, and we got her back.
Sorry about that.
No,
Good
no
old
worries.
internet.
Yeah, it always happens sometimes. But let me see. You got some sun pouring in there.
Yeah, I see that.
There coming in. You might have to
fix that.
adjust your camera, or basically you're on your laptop, right? Yeah,
right,
there you go. You just pivot away from it. Boom, we're back. We still got questions, and we still got 15 minutes. Folks.
All right.
Like a phoenix from the ashes, we are back. Thanks, Mia. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Okay, let's scroll back up and see. Okay, there's this question from Tracy. Are the tests that you're speaking of today, are they applicable to those with pancreatic tumors? Now, I'm assuming she's talking about a pancreatic neuroendocrine tumor. But any thoughts on that for Tracy?
Okay, so let me go to the professionals, the experts. So the paper from Dr. James Howe that we mentioned earlier, which is published in the Annals of Surgical Oncology, and this one was from 2014. They did say that in one of their conclusions that higher pancreastatin levels are significantly associated with worse progression-free survival and overall survival in both small bowel nets and PNETs. So they seem to say it is a marker. And let me check if they also say that the 5-HIAA is a marker, because I think I read that somewhere. Let's see. Yeah, this paper is mostly focused on the pancreastatin, so that was what this one was. And again, that paper is available for you. It's published in 2014. And let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, I'm going to see if there's any other papers specifically referencing the 5-HIAA for PNETs. I believe they do. And give me just a moment.
No worries. You keep looking for that. When you were gone, I was asking everybody how they're kind of feeling. So Gina says mentally not good. Same with Judy. I just wanted to send you all some love. This is a tough time for everybody, especially those with a NET diagnosis. But I feel you, and I just want you to know that we're all here for you, and I'm glad you're here at these luncheons, and hopefully, besides information, we can provide you some of that community and connection, because I feel like that's invaluable, especially during a time like this. So sending you all some love.
Yeah, that particular paper just specifically was focusing on pancreastatin. So again, check with your doctor. Hopefully you have a team, right? That's something else that they talk about with this disease, is having a team there. So
sure.
You obviously are going to need your oncologist, you're going to need your surgeon, your nutritionist, but your gastroenterologist, your endocrinologist, don't forget about them, because as we've shown you, these hormones can spike when there's a change in tumor burden, and it can be sooner than you'll see on a scan. And again, from what the patients have told me, you know that something's happening before we do. So, try to get that extra help, try to get an endocrinologist and or a gastroenterologist on your team so they can work, look at the hormone side of it. I don't believe, in general, the doctors all say that the very little time is spent on neuroendocrine tumors in medical school. And I think for some, even less time is spent on the hormones. So if there's a possibility for you to add this kind of a person on your team, I think it's going to round out your care. And from what I've been told, it helps you to give you that peace of mind that you're getting all the pieces covered.
Speaking of peace of mind, I saw one of our attendees, Linda, says these luncheons help keep us grounded. That means so much. It's such a simple but profound statement, Linda. So thank you. And honestly, the impact is tangible after we do these every week, and it's something that is very fulfilling for me. So I appreciate you saying that, because that honestly means a lot. We had a question. I'm not sure if you feel like you can speak to this, but it's about diet guidelines. And I know we've talked a lot about, overall quality of life. Do you know if there are any new diet guidelines to avoid or help carcinoid or serotonin syndrome? Any ideas about something like that?
I don't specifically, because I don't deal with the nutrition side of it all. Again, when we get your blood tests, it's blind to us. We don't get any data, but I would contact a nutritionist. And I think that there may be some products that came out recently within the last, say, 5 years to help with diarrhea, aside from using the somatostatin analogs of octreotide or lanreotide, which, again, just to share laboratory information, we can measure the circulating levels of these drugs in your blood. So if you're on octreotide or you're on lanreotide and you're feeling good, the way we see it is find out what your level of that drug is in your blood at the trough level. So after you've been on it for at least 3 months to achieve steady state, and at the end of the cycle, so immediately preceding your next injection, go and get your blood test drawn for this. And thankfully, the octreotide and lanreotide, since they're not naturally occurring steroids in your body, it's a drug, you can collect it with anything. It doesn't even have to be sent to us frozen. It's very, very stable. So you can measure your blood levels when you're feeling good, when you're along your journey. You want to know where you are. So if you get your blood levels checked for either octreotide or lanreotide, and you get a number, right? A number is a quantitative piece of data. And then let's say a few months later or a year later, you're not feeling that good anymore. You're having symptoms again, and maybe you're having tumor growth. Maybe check that octreotide again or the lanreotide and see where is that number now compared to where it was when you were feeling good. I mean, data can provide information and valuable information to you as you're going along in the journey. So I know you don't have access to doctors every day, especially with COVID. Maybe some of you haven't been able to go out and see your specialist in your once-a-year appointment as you once were. So hopefully you can get to a lab, you can get your doctor to order these tests, and that will give you a picture of what's going on inside.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you, Gina, for your question. Hopefully that helped a little bit. But another thing that we have to offer, if you wanted more information on that, is, as I said at the top of the program, I've been working with CCF for almost 10 years, and we create various video projects to help achieve the same mission, which is to raise awareness and education about NETs, about neuroendocrine tumors. So one of the main ways we do this now is through this Facebook Live video series, but we also have a produced video series on treatment that's coming out this year. And so if you go back to the Facebook Lives that we've done, you can go to the videos tab here on the Facebook page. We have one on nutrition. And in the video series, we cover a lot of different ground, a lot of different topics. So this is kind of an overall statement to everybody, not just Gina. Like, we have a lot of content out there that's on the videos tab, that's on our YouTube channel for the different aspects of this disease. In fact, tomorrow we're releasing our new video on clinical trials, which is really important for a lot of people in their journey with this disease. And most of the doctors that I talk to highly encourage that. And there's a lot of good information for that. But this video will come out tomorrow. It'll be on the Facebook page as well as the YouTube channel. So just a reminder to check those out too when you need further information. Real quick, Mia, Judy had missed the beginning of the conversation that we had, and she just had a follow-up question. Did you recommend blood tests for midgut nets? And if we could establish exactly, we've also had a question about exactly what falls under midgut nets.
Goodness, I need to go to another presentation for that one. I'm not a doctor, you guys.
Okay. But also, did you recommend blood tests for midgut nets?
So again, this is something that has to be decided by you and your doctor.
Okay.
But if you're having symptoms, or if you're not having symptoms, if you want to know what your numbers look like when you're feeling good, And maybe, you want to know what your numbers look like when you're not feeling good. This data points can just help you understand where you are. And if things are changing, it's going to be reflected in the blood tests. So I think it's a great idea, but you have to talk to your doctor. Every case is individual. And, I can't say, oh, you have to go get these blood tests. But this is something for you to discuss with your doctor. And we think they're helpful. We are told from patients that they give them this peace of mind, this quality of life to know where they are with this disease. And I think the thing to realize with our blood tests is, in the case that we shared earlier, where the gentleman's pancreastatin shot up to over 15,000,
Right.
clearly evident of tumor burden increase, right? If your number increases in the lower ranges, say a couple of 100 points, you might be over that 135 picogram per ml normal reference range, right? The reference interval for someone who doesn't have the disease or is stable in their disease. But if you have a rise of a few hundred points, as I've been told by doctors and patients, that's not necessarily, I need to run and have surgery tomorrow. It's not imminent danger. But what it can do is, again, this goes back to the quality of life. It can give you that peace of mind knowing that I'm going to watch this marker, and after maybe it goes up to 200, 500, 700, maybe then I'm going to get a scan. I'm going to be able to show my insurance company why they should pay for a scan, because I've got these biomarkers that are going up, sequentially in this quarterly monitoring. And then essentially it can give you the peace of mind to know that, okay, I'm not in imminent danger right now, but maybe going down the road, I'm going to have some kind of a procedure to debulk these tumors, because it's evident that they're growing. And again, you're going to know it because you're not feeling well, but the blood tests can give you data to go get other help and prepare you for maybe what's next. And so that's, again, where the patients come back and give us the feedback that these blood biomarkers are so specific, they're so reproducible, they're spot on, they go up as their tumors are growing, they come down after they're debulked. So really, it's a great tool in your toolkit. I know it's not easy because you have to get the Z-tube and get to the lab and all that, but if you have any trouble with those pieces of it, please call us. We're here to help you. Email me again, mtepper@interscienceinstitute.com. Love talking to the patients and just being able to help in any way that we can.
You think neuroendocrine tumor patients have good reasons to be hopeful for the near future?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much research going on. From my beginning days of working with this, where there were not very many research publications put out, I don't even know the number today. I really go to PubMed.com and type in neuroendocrine tumors or carcinoid cancer and see how many research publications are out there. I know there are so many companies and so many researchers and institutions doing great work. The NIH is on this for the MEN1 patients specifically. And there's just so much work that's going into it right now. I can't believe the explosion of articles, conferences, and support groups that exist around the country. If you're in an area where, well, I guess now with COVID, doesn't matter where you are. There's support groups everywhere. CCF obviously being the oldest support group. 1968, it was established by the Warners. So there's plenty of support and resources out there for you. And just a funny little fact, Dr. Woltering some years ago did some research, and they compared the life expectancy of neuroendocrine tumor patients to the regular insurance life tables of people living. And neuroendocrine patients actually live longer than those timetables. And I think the patients gave me the answer that they think that they're just taking better care of their health because they're more aware of it. So from this paper a long time ago put out by Dr. Woltering, they actually found that neuroendocrine patients on the whole were living longer than the actuarial tables from the insurance companies. So that should give you some hope. And if you're not feeling good, if you're not feeling like your team is behind you or your doctor is listening to you, try to get a second opinion. And in these days, you don't have to get on a plane. You can have a Zoom meeting, you can have a med conference, and just make sure that your doctors are there for you, and the nurses, and I mean, the whole support team. If you get the right one, everybody they know when they're on the right team.
That is awesome. And I think it's so true. I mean, it's a metaphor for life. I think being self-aware first is the first step to solving so many of our problems, right? Is just understanding what you're dealing with. I think that's crucial. So everybody who had signed in when Mia had stepped away for just a brief moment, and I asked how everybody was feeling. I don't have the time to address everybody, but I just want you to know that I hear you and I see you, and we're definitely sending our love here at the foundation to everybody dealing with this disease, to dealing with this pandemic, to dealing with the year that has been 2020. It has been challenging. So please know that we're sending all our love and strength and community here at CCF. Oh, and I wanted to say to you, Mia, that AG Dabs says, and thank you to ISI for the availability of the little yellow handbook for NET patients. It is our Bible. So that's, he wanted to send some extra love for that. And with that being said, we are at the end of our hour. So thank you, Mia, so much for spending time with us today. I've had a great time getting to know you this week and seeing how you serve the community. And I really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. And thank you. And thank you, Rain. And thank you for the work you do at the foundation. And patients, thank you. Because without you, we wouldn't have jobs, right? We wouldn't, like that's the joke in the laboratory industry. Without a patient, we wouldn't have jobs. And at the end of every number is a patient. So we take our work very seriously. We know we're a small spoke in the wheel, but we hope that we can help you and give you some data that gives you some quality of life and prepares you for maybe what's coming next. So please reach out to us if there's anything we can help with. And Rain, thanks again for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Of course. And thanks also to you all at home, as always, for joining us. We hope this program helped you and answer some of your questions. And Mia's right. We wouldn't be here without you. We are here to serve you, to give you value. So let us know if we can do our job better. Let us know when we're doing it great, because it's all about you, and we appreciate you spending this time with us every week, and having these people come back every week from all over the world is just so amazing. Again, reach out to CCF if you have any follow-up questions here on the Facebook page or at carcinoid.org. Big thanks again, as always, to our presenting sponsor, Tercera Therapeutics. Without them, the program wouldn't be possible. And finally, my name is Rain Bennett, your host. Thank you for watching, and please join us next time on Luncheon with the Experts, which we're taking next week off because it's Thanksgiving. So be safe. I know it's hard to deal with everybody or to deal with this time when we want to be traveling and visiting family. Please be safe first, but hold those that you love close to you, and stay healthy, stay safe, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.